Awesome. Um, Let me just, since everybody knows everybody now on this, meeting, um, we don't, um, just to give you an idea, Vandana, at Zettabytes today, Robin, Vinny, Lisa, and I were the co-founders for Zettabytes today, beginning of January of 2020. That's how it all came about. And then, our Zeta Stars group has increased. And starting last year, we started to do these virtual lunch and learns, because what we found is, I'm sure you have found it in Women in Agile, it is very hard to hold a lot of in-person events once a month, and we wanted to also have a learning component. So that's what this whole series kind of came about, that how do we have some learning and informational component, given, and just have in-person fun networking meetings.
Mhm.
That way we can kind of separate out who comes to our group and everything else. Um, so let's get started. If you want to introduce yourself a little bit, Vandana, this is getting recorded, so it'll be on our YouTube channel, right by tomorrow. So, introduce yourself. Tell us, where you came from and what are you doing in 2024. I know it's a big year for you.
Yep. Thank you, Rini. Thank you, folks. Lovely meeting you all virtually. And hopefully, one of these days, we should be able to catch up in person. But like, as you can see, I'm an enterprise agile coach, but I do come from a very diverse background of healthcare. Started off with patient care, healthcare, got drawn into how do we find better ways of working and improving the lives we serve. That's been my motto for almost all my life and all through my profession is how do we just find ourselves finding different ways of working and what can we do there? So that got me into my wonderful corporate healthcare experience where I did a lot of agile transformations, went into the consulting world just to tap into see what those other industries look like. And I got super enthusiastic and launched my own, bringing my expertise from little of all the backgrounds and focusing more on our healthcare products, healthcare offices. As you all know, even as patients today, we do have great improved technology, but finally, it's receiving services is where we have a lot of opportunities to still grow. So keeping that again as my coaching angle, I look at bits and pieces in which where can we implement the so-called principles, not married to any specific framework, but principles that we can incorporate into our everyday life and find those ways of doing working better. So today's presentation, in fact, I would say is I would love to make it very, very interactive. So please stop me, ask me questions. It's not going to be a one-way stream. So just as a quick icebreaker, take a peek at the scenario, which in some form or the other, each one of us have been, whether we've been a developer or whatever role we are right now supporting our space, feel free to take a look at the scenario, reflect back for a moment, and then share a couple of reasons of what could have been those frustrations or just being overwhelmed. Share it in the chat if you can. And today I am working on one computer, just one monitor, so I may not have the option to look at the chat, but let me know if you do have any questions. So let me know in the chat, or if you just want to speak up since we are a small group, feel free to speak up. That would be much appreciated too.
Okay, well, I'll speak. I type slowly, so I'd rather speak versus typing. But it's interesting you bring this particular scenario up because going through something similar. I'm leading a group that where we're working on service work stream. So I'm in the healthcare industry. So I love the fact that that was your background. So, but now I'm more on the corporate side of it, right? Not doing the clinical side, but the corporate side of things. And part of my role is to go ahead and kind of lead different projects, even though technically we have a project manager, but anyway. So one of the things is, you're right, you get a lot of enthusiasm up front, and then slowly things start to wane away. And part of it is people just come to the meetings that just sort of to complain, do a lot of just complaints of all the problems, right? And just getting folks, first of all, to show up. Well, first of all, it's just to get people to show up, but then, and to explain that importance. But then, of course, when we talk, which I think is important to get those things out, but then to try to get folks to take all those comments and being able to categorize it and then figure out, okay, well, what are the things we're going to work on moving forward, or what are the things that we want to tackle, and then getting them to actually do the work that's required to now take that project forward. So that would be some of the reasons of my frustrations.
Excellent. Thank you, Seema. Absolutely. So from what I understand, it is sometimes we find many of our meetings, we spend hours together on it, but still have no takeaways, stepping away from all the project management. Anyone else to share? And I don't know where I can see the chat, but
Vinny,
first, yeah.
Vinny, you want to just read it out for her?
Yeah, I put it in the chat here for you, but some frustrations I've noticed come from projects like this, like waiting on deliverables from certain teammates, get bored of the project now that it's not new anymore. Different parts of the software isn't connecting correctly, or APIs aren't integrating in the way that you want them to. And my personal favorite frustration is when someone used the wrong color or inserted the wrong copy on any part of the website.
Perfect. You just stated all of it front to back. Anyone else to share?
I've faced problems where I don't think everybody had a common goal or understanding of a common goal. And, putting somebody like me in there, we always have like micro digressions, like going off in tangent. So that creates a lot of frustration. So I think, that is very frustrating too. So it depends on the facilitator, how well they manage this common goal and agenda. So.
Yep. So in terms of anybody else, I'm sorry if I'm skipping anyone, but feel free to share. So let me ask you this. Have you folks heard the concept of story mapping? What could be your experience? Yeah, kind of, we'd kind of do it, but we're not. Anyone?
I've heard the term. I don't know that I've actually seen it in play.
Thank you.
I've heard of the term before, and I've been a part of a team that tried to use it. I'm not sure we did it well.
Yeah,
That's
mine
about where
is
that is.
absolutely the same. I've kind of understand it at a high level, but I've never seen it in action.
Excellent. And so for all the reasons that you have stated and you have shared your frustration, lack of understanding of the common goal, I have really no idea who changed the screen from blue to black or whatever, right? It all goes back relating to why I picked the title Dancing in the Dark is pretty much most of the time, that's exactly what we are doing. We think we are working, we think we are busy. Our teams know you have wonderful project managers sharing their screens, sharing their goal, yet we seem to be missing something really simple. And then there comes the big fiasco of either we miss a big point or we just miss the whole concept of building a product from front to back. So, as the name suggests, some of the things that we are going to cover today, and trust me, a story mapping workshop, I usually take about, 3 to 4 hours. It's a half a day workshop that I do. But today we are just going to get a high level understanding and kind of talk through some of the Q&As and even some of the challenges that we might have, even though we know what a story mapping concept means. So, coming to understand what is story mapping, if I ask you folks what is story mapping, do you kind of feel like an angst inside you? Oh my gosh, this is just one other technique to learn. Do you feel that?
Absolutely, because you feel like one, there's just a bunch of terminology, right? It seems like it's a phase. That's what it seems like when it comes out. Oh, this is our conversation and this is the route we're going. And then it seems like 3 months from now, it's like, oh, no, the trend is to do this way when we plan our projects, or no, then we got to move. So yes, to your point, it's just like, oh, one more thing I got to learn.
There you go. And we just love to do that in technology. We kind of keep slapping in new techniques. I find this quite often, even in my space of leading agile transformations, is I remember the time when people were so angst about just hearing that word agile. They're like, nope, don't come anywhere around me. So, but step away from that angst. You're going to look at story mapping as a technique or something that you're going to embrace and instill in your everyday life. If you were going to narrate a story to a fifth grader about your product, how are you going to do it? So think about it that way. You are really not going to be looking at it as a specific approach or as a specific, this is the way to do it. You're going to find your ways to do it, whatever way that's going to mean for you. So basically, story mapping, if you look at story mapping, it is a collaborative discussion and a practice that brings in the entire group together to understand what does a journey look for a customer. Again, we are all wearing our hats, from a product thinking hat, trying to understand more from a customer journey. We are going to step away from just being shareholders, but we're going to wear our hats as a customer. How am I helping my customer to feel what their journey looks like? Whether it's a patient entering the hospital, or even starting from registration, or even rewind back is making an appointment, or maybe just stepping into your banking industry. How do you step into a bank? How can you do it? How do you do your transactions? I don't have a smartphone yet. How can I do this, right? How do we actually work with our customers, making that product from nothing to what a customer really wants? I tried to put our presentation with a little bit of comic kind of my story so that it becomes a little story too. So as much as I love narrations, this is one way of actually trying to get a little bit of story within story mapping. So why is story mapping? Okay, Vandana, that's great. We do it. We have a lot of meetings. We have stand-ups. We have a lot of things going on. I cannot step into another story mapping session. But let's just take a step back. The most benefit of story mapping is making it sure that it is a user-centric approach. Yes, we all start with that, but somewhere down the line, we just miss the boat and say, I am just going to finish this and send that release. Guess what? The next day, something else is broken. There is another Band-Aid over Band-Aid. Release planning and prioritization. I just love this. I remember being a release manager and it just drove me crazy. We can have all kinds of planning, all kinds of quadrants and prioritization. Share one or two of your experiences where your release actually went in measuring outcomes for the product. Have you ever had a release that measures the outcome of that single product? Anyone?
Sometimes yes, sometimes yes. Most of the times I've seen, especially from
What did it feel? What did it feel when you held a release or when you released something that actually related to a product outcome, whether it was an enhancement, whatever that outcome was defined?
I mean,
when
oh,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
Sheila.
Oh,
No,
I
go
was
ahead.
just going to say, I know we've had multiple programs. So there's two sides to both of that, right? When we had a software situation that it was intended to be a clinical documentation system that was going to be newer in the cloud, all of that. And so some of the glitches that we have constantly where we're putting in patches, well, where IT is putting in the patches, it got to be too much. You create all these workarounds to do the process. And so this new product was coming out. I will tell you now, it's been 4 years and we're still waiting on this product, right? The challenge of waiting for the release is obviously that all that excitement that you built up with all of the staff, it's a joke for them now. Oh yeah, we're not actually going to get this product. This is just, but what's happened and put in place is they're actually being forced to work out of both products because they want to because that was part of, it wasn't released technically. It's like a pilot, but you still have to work in the old system. So they're kind of duplicating their work, right? The other advantage of not releasing it yet, of course, is because we did find so many glitches, which is now we're on the 4th or 5th year, right? Of that, even the being able to move from one product to the other, it would have been a complete catastrophe if we had released it at the time frame that we did. So that's the one thing that we've definitely seen when it comes to that releasing versus not releasing challenges.
Perfect. Thank you, Seema. Anyone else? Any other thoughts about it? And let's come into the third most important part is communication. And this is a constant frustration that we have. Doesn't matter which industry we are in, whether we send that communication via newsletters, release notes, whatever, yet sometimes our stakeholders don't really understand. You could be following every review, you could be following every checklist item, yet our stakeholders don't understand. Hands up to all those people who get pinged as soon as there's a release out. When did this go in? I wasn't informed about it. Yep. So therefore, story mapping event is not a one-time event that happens. Story mapping event or a story mapping exercise is something that you continuously bring in with your teams. And when I say teams, it's all involved. It is your, we'll dive into a couple more details about the 3 amigos and a lot of different concepts, but it is a very interactive exercise that you make your teams, make it fun, make it vibrant, but at the same time, they understand what is it to where am I going with. If I ask you and say, from the time you woke up in the morning to now, if you were going to map out your activities, how does that feel? Do you feel those activities are the same day to day?
Some days it is. I definitely feel like I keep repeating, right? Because things didn't get done, or I got part of it done, but then I have to finish the rest. And then other things, they end because it's a one time.
And then if you find that the same, then have you ever asked yourself back, why am I doing this anyway?
That's a regular day event.
I got to come here, get my paycheck and go, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Even that, I sometimes wonder.
Yeah. Of course, that's a totally different conversation right now.
Robin never has those days.
So, number one, the concepts, or we can call it the components of a story map, anatomy of a story map, whatever you want to draw in there, it doesn't matter. It is always picturing your now map, not a later map. What is my day going to look like tomorrow? I don't know. What are those joys I'm going to get, or what are pains? I might wake up with a stiff neck. I don't know. Maybe my map is going to be different for tomorrow. So, what is your now map? This is the most important piece of it. Why? Because your now map is going to make your map more meaningful. Yes, by the time your users want to use that app or so-called whatever beautiful things that we want to give in those enhancements, it could take you 4 years, but you haven't released your product yet, so you don't even know. What's the main backbone of a story map? The backbone of a story map are the activities that's being driven by a user. So let's take, for example, I'm going to go back into, say, we as a group are tasked with building a fitness app. So number one, as much as we want the fitness app to be extremely competitive out in the market, but you also need to define what are the basic activities that a user will want to do that in that fitness app. The next two pieces are pretty easy. Once you have identified those activities, then we will talk about user stories or tasks. You could see both kind of terminologies being used. So I would say just step away from the terminologies, your user tasks. And then after you have aligned those tasks, user stories to tasks, you start building out what is my common outcome for the release. So your maps become a story left to right, giving a narrative flow. I'm building a fitness app, considering these users. This is their journey on the app. Questions so far? Okay with me so far? So now that's great, Vandana. It's wonderful. Conceptually, it's great. How do I actually practice it? How do I actually bring it in person, in live? How do we do it? And we're all doing this in some form or the other. I will honestly say that we are doing it in some form. It is not like we are not doing it. So the number one piece of it is user interviews and gathering your user experiences and needs. This is the main piece of it where you start gathering information. If I am tasked with building a fitness app, who are my users? Who could be my users? Hands up if anyone have done those user interviews before building your product for whatever industry you could be in. No
I guess
one.
we've done surveys, so that would be a way that
Yep.
we've gotten the information.
Yep. So once again, yeah, clicking our mindset to be very, very story driven. If I were to be talking to people, I would actually conduct interviews in such a way that we don't overwhelm the user with what we are giving. We want to understand what their journey looks like. First of all, do they even need a fitness app? That's going to make you understand, do they even need a fitness app? I can quote by example, there was one time where we spent about 9 months on a project with 30 people working on it, involving clinicians, physicians, top to down, whomever. After 9 months, when we had that very small little component out, it just came to enlightenment, I would say, that is not what they wanted. The pressure the team felt in trying to put band-aids, if there was an interview, if there was an experience where we had actually conducted those interviews with the physicians just to understand what is it that they're seeking, maybe there would have been another alternative that we could have given. Second, and I just came up with this thing, is your different personas. You don't know who are your different users. How many times have we identified the personas who are using the fitness app? Now, I could be a young teenager using the fitness app. I could be a senior citizen using a fitness app. I may not be a fitness person using a fitness app. I don't know. I don't know what my goals are. I have no clue about fitness. So how are we going to build that app? It's going to break those silos. Third, but not the least, it's very important to understand what does that journey for the user take in. Going back, I'm stepping into the bank. What do I need? Do I need to use the locker, or am I going to go withdraw money, or do I need to deposit money? What is my journey? How many times have we walked into maybe the grocery store, and we've gotten lost about what we really wanted? And maybe we forget about what we want, what we actually came into the store for. And I'm guilty of that. Every time I walk into Trader Joe's, that's exactly what happens to me. So my journey in understanding where were those products kept for me to understand, has that journey been mapped for a customer walking into the grocery store? Sometimes if you look at certain grocery stores, they really have done that research to align the products appropriately. So it's real simple as we now look at, that's great. Story mapping is not a big thing. It's very, very simple. And you can have your own acronym. One of the acronyms that I used with my team is UMAP. Understand, map, explore, structure, and then you kind of go on with it. So let's look at our framing part of it, the big story. Who, what, why? Understanding the why is the biggest component of any kind of a product. When we miss the big boat, you could have been in those wonderful presentations where you had the wonderfully written vision, crafted excellently with the best words possible. Hands up if you were able to keep that vision in your mind if not every day, every week, that the work that you were doing was being aligned to that vision.
Very hard to do.
Why? Because that vision becomes very complicated. It doesn't have an outcome that I'm trying to do. I was tasked with building a fitness app, but did anyone explain to me why am I building a fitness app? Is it because I just woke up today and I said, today I'm going to just have this business of a fitness app? I don't know, maybe that's my why. Second, as soon as you identify your personas, we then look into activities. How are those activities going? So your activities will get aligned in a horizontal way that will begin to talk to you. When I enter the hospital, I walk into registration and then I follow that. Once you have your activities aligned, you can now start building out stories. If I have to have my patient walk in and register as an individual walking into the emergency, these are the different steps I need to do. As a customer, I'm walking into the restaurant. These are the different activities I need to do. Slice out viable releases and slice out development strategy. Here is where it's going to be a little bit of poking in our minds. Your viable releases, as much as possible, should be some kind of an outcome for a release. And what should be that release is with an intention of what's the minimum viable product that I can give. One of you shared during our introduction, well, we sit in all these meetings and we go nowhere with it. It's because when we talk about a product, we have forgotten what will that entire product look like, and we focus on the nitty-gritty details of the ifs and the whys and the buts. This is exactly where your development strategy is going to play. Whoever has played chess or any other sports, you always have an opening game, a mid game, and an end game. Your opening game is going to be this large entity of, hey, I just need this fitness app to help people set their goals, or whatever you define that opening game to be. When you now dive into the mid part of the game, that's where you're going to start putting all your business rules, the regulatory part of it, all of it which comes into it. And the end game is where now you're going to see amongst all that, what are those 5 pieces I can take and build it in my product and keep releasing. So keeping that in mind, we will go ahead and we'll just take 5 minutes to build an app, to do a story map for the same thing of a fitness map. So assuming that I'm going to show you this example. This is easier for me to share. So a story map typically will look like your horizontal lines and your vertical. We have all been in this kind of a picture many times. Think about it. You're standing in front of a wall throwing Post-its there. That's about it. So your main activities that you see in the orange button here is right here. These are your main activities based on your personas, which you have already done. The next line of blue stickies that you're seeing are called the activities. To reach each of these activities, here are your different stories. Now your stories, again, I'm not going to dive into how the stories have to be written. It's your conversation, your 3 C's. As a user, I want to make sure that I search my email by keyword, whatever. That's going to be the concept of your stories. Now, who and when and how do we all do it? Because we all do it together as a team. You have business analysts, you have developers, you have testers, you have your stakeholders, you have them all sitting here together, mapping this entire product for you. And once you begin to map your product, you begin to start grouping, okay, assuming that the story here is more of a priority than the story here, let me go ahead and map it out so that I can go ahead and do my releases. We know it's not going to be perfect, but we're going to learn from it. We're going to iterate from release 1 to release 2. Hands up if you have ever done PI planning before. Okay. So PI planning is a concept, obviously, from the SAFe framework, where you have 2-day-long events, trying to plan, trying to put everything together. It's great, awesome if you do it well. The problem happens is when you don't have this information available for a PI plan or even during a PI plan. You need to have some kind of a story map to start with. You could be sitting in the best plan ever, but if you don't have a story that's going to talk to you about simplicity of your product, how are you going to break? So some of the best practices when you story map. So as much as I'm saying story map, yay, it's simple, there could be some challenges and some angst in driving those kind of discussions. What do you need? You need people to ask you the right questions. You need people to challenge you to say, what if? Have we determined our user goals and our team involvement? This is very, very important. If you don't have your goal defined, you cannot. Your structure and collaborative. Are you folks staying as, well, Vandana is going to be in her room doing her own story map, Seema is going to do, that doesn't work. You're here together because you want to challenge each one. Prioritization and accessibility. I know many times we have our features prioritized without even asking, is that even possible? And then we start putting band-aid situations because we can't say a no, right? So that becomes how easily can we access these features. Last but not the least is communication and validation. Validation that your release 1 actually worked. These pieces that we released is actually working for the customer. That's a piece of it that I think most products, we are still working on it. A beautiful example of, I always keep going back to Amazon, is they do a lot of investment on everyday real-time data in improving. It's a beautiful concept where they actually take time taking that real-time data, analyzing and seeing how do you get your app better. I could not have imagined sitting just before I got into the call, I just placed an order for X number of yoga blocks. Look
Just to
at the
let you
way
know that Vandana is a yoga instructor and a fitness guru. So that's
therefore
why
my
she's
fitness
buying.
app. Yeah, thank you, Rini, for linking both. Yep.
Right.
That's true, but look at that. Did we ever think? Yes, as much as we hated COVID era also opened new possibilities for us. I almost hate to go into a store right now. It overwhelms me. I am better off just doing that. But because of that real-time data analysis and validation that they constantly seek from users, is doing that. So to help you all with, okay, let me see a story map in action. I'm going to invite you all to Mural and let me say anyone, yep, can edit, anyone with link. Okay, anyone can edit. Oh, okay, let me share. If I'm not able to paste it in the chat, should be able to paste it in the chat. How do I?
You see the chat little icon at the bottom?
Yeah, I kind of
like
condensed.
a thought.
Yeah. Where do I see that? That's weird. Oh, yes.
It's on your
It's
right
right
hand
here.
corner.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry. So you should be entering this mural and let me once again share my screen. Share. Let me know if this is the mural you're entering. Excellent. And it's just a free account, so we really don't have to worry about anything. So number one, and this is just a basic template. I kind of put it out here, which is already available. We have enough tools. You have your supporting tools. You have Jira. You have so many tools out there that you can use. But here is a quick activity. If you ever want to train your teams into understanding, let's take a dive into a brain dump of our product or even our feature. Not looking for perfection, but a complete brain dump. is number one, identifying your personas. So this is extremely important, is identifying your personas. Who are those kind of users? Because each user will have different activities that they will do. That's the main concept. And once again, an example is I remember one of the teams that I was working before, they missed a whole bucket of their current customers. They developed this app for, for this wonderful piece of information, but they completely missed the boat on their current customers. That included thousands of customers on that app. So it's as simple as it. I mean, we would, on the hindsight, think, how did you do it? They missed it. They just missed it. So if you want to start brainstorming here, go ahead, start inputting. And if you've used Mural, you can just pull in stickies like Post-it notes. You can do that. Or you can just duplicate these, duplicate this and keep adding what are those different activities. Let's take the same thing. If you folks don't want to put a fitness app, that's fine. But who are your personas for a fitness app? Let's go ahead and fill that out. And what are some, yeah.
Vandana, just on a time check.
Yep.
We have to get to Q&A in like 4 minutes.
Yep, in 4 minutes. Yep.
So do you think it would be easier if we shout out while you type?
Oh, yeah. Sure. Go ahead.
Instead of all of us, going into it. Does that make sense?
Yep. And then I will share this template with you all. You can just, whatever you can put it. So let's take like 3 minutes or so into just quick personas. Who could be your personas, assuming that you're going to do your user interviews?
Well, I'll start with one, since this is an LGBTQ plus professionals organization.
Mm-hmm.
With all regards to Vinny is a marathon runner, so let's do gay man who is into fitness.
Mm-hmm.
As one persona.
Mm-hmm.
How about women in their 50s as another persona?
Yep.
Not to leave you out, Lisa.
Mm-hmm. No, very right. Because remember, personas is going to drive the activities.
Right.
And
any other suggestions?
Teams. I mean, you can do the younger or teams. Yeah, doing a group of teams, maybe.
Yep.
Okay. So let's look at this. Okay. A persona of gay men. What could be your activities that you could be using this fitness app for?
Did Vinny leave the thing? Not that you have to answer the question.
Tracking my runs. We'll start there.
I was just going to say, tracking.
Yep. Okay. And then so on and so forth. We can just do a couple.
Yep.
Strength training.
Tracking nutrition. Or strength training. Yeah, that's a good one too.
Strength training. Yep.
What about food? Because that would be a thing, even though it's fitness. With the knowing the proteins that you're eating and things like that.
Nutrition.
Yeah. That's a better word.
I shamelessly will admit I have 2 different apps that do that right now, that I need one for each because of how sophisticated or not sophisticated they are. So having it all in one place would be great.
Yeah.
Excellent. There you go. That's your persona. That's what you got from conducting the interview, that you don't want to go through multiple apps. Let's look at our 50s, women in 50s. Oh, I love that. Every decade gets better is what I say. I don't know what I want. I want fun.
Reminder. I like the one that, we have I'm forced to use one because of the insurance company, gives us these apps. And the thing that I like, and that eventually rewards, so, part of the spousal benefits, I have to be compliant to that fitness app. But the one that I like is it tracks how long I'm sitting at my table. On my chair, working, and forces me to get up like every hour. So it buzzes, my phone buzzes, giving me a reminder. So, like reminders overall.
Yep. Women in 50s tracks daily habits. We need reminders.
Right.
That's an activity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ideas.
And whoever wants to speak for the teenager.
Instagram posts. No.
Instagram.
Ways to connect your app to those social media things.
Yep.
I
Yep.
think that would be a thing to look at.
Yep. So anyway, so that would be so taking a step back and looking is once you actually find your activities laid out by your persona, here is where you will start taking the next few things of, okay, how am I going to start looking at the user stories that's going to support me tracking my run, help me in match strength training, nutrition. Obviously, it's not going to be a one-to-one match, but you want a tracker to give you reminders. What are those X number of user stories that needs to be done? So you're going to start breaking that down in more of a brain dump. As a 50-year-old woman, I want a reminder that's actually going to be less wordy. I don't have time to read, right? I want a quick reminder. That's what I need. So that's exactly how you're going to guide your teams, your BAs, your developers, testers, whoever, is start writing it out, that step in terms of stories. Once you have your stories is where you are going to match and say, okay, story 1, story 2 is going to get grouped here. This needs to go here. And then this is going to be more of a conversation.
Mhm.
Don't worry about slicing out releases, because that's one of the biggest fiasco we always do, is focus on what do we need to get things out first. But once you have this backbone done, out of all this, what's the most important part that I really need amongst the personas that I have identified? Again, you want to take your 80-20 rule in terms of personas, right? You want to then start picking the things that you want, and then you begin slicing and make this plan a little bit more effective than spreadsheets and those 8-hour meetings that take us nowhere. So going back into, you can always play around and test it out, because I usually send this mural out to most of my folks. It's a great way to actually test it out for your own team.
Mhm.
So what happens in this whole piece of it before we end it is, number one, you have these tools that's going to help you in your collaboration. If your teammate or your team comes back and says, well, I don't understand, what did we do? Have a reason to go back. Show them the narrative. Show them the narrative. Don't forget about, don't focus so much on getting your scripting right, but focus on where your story starts. You have now begun to bring in all your cross-functional team members to challenge you to think otherwise. You could be the product manager, but you yourself are in a silo. How do we do it digitally? I can tell you that there are tons of tools out here. Although I'm going to say my in-person sessions were the best. They would just conquer the whole wall and start putting things on the wall. That would be the best thing to do. But hey, we have tons of tools supporting us in this journey. A couple of examples to quote on successful story mapping is Lyft.
Right.
The Lyft increased almost 20% of their velocity by actually starting to story map their customer journey. Another example is the HubSpot. It's the marketing platform. They started understanding, how do we actually have folks understand the ways they want to market, and started developing story maps. Last but not the least, Airbnb. They improvise their dashboard so that people are able to put their listing easily, and guests are able to find the listing that they want. So Airbnb is also a great example. If you read about their stories, how story mapping has enhanced their whole process and increased their guest reviews, because they deal a lot with reviews, they increase their review process because of all the story mapping. So that leaves us just with 5 minutes with Q&A. I will send this PDF out too, but if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out. For whatever reason, last night I got locked out of all my Gmail accounts and I'm not able to share my Gmail. I have no clue. I have no clue what's happened.
Wow.
But yeah, my Yahoo, it's something that got stepped out. But this is a great lunch and learn just to remove the angst about it's not just a technique, but it is something that you imbibe in your everyday life. Story mapping is something that you can just start. I'll share the template, pick it out, try it with your teams. You will encourage them to think otherwise. Any questions for me?
No, this was great. It was really nice to see. I don't know that I necessarily utilize the actual tools of story mapping, but I think the work that I've been doing follows this path. So it was nice to get a little bit of validation actually. Knowing that I'm doing the process
I
right.
agree. I agree with Seema and Lisa's message out there. I think what I also heard is that we don't necessarily have to use it for product development. You know, if I'm doing like
Mhm.
any project,
Mhm.
there's a goal, and then we can have that discussion. Or it could be like a weekly, where we are, and our users, coming, or whoever we are working for, especially with the tools that you talked about, having that availability on Trello or Jira. I think that is a good prompt, and it can be applied to many things. It's just a way of thinking,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
a structured way of thinking. So,
Yep.
so this was helpful. This was very helpful.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I've always noticed that every time we have practiced story mapping, it has inspired the teams to think more and become more innovative. This is one of the
And
pieces that
right.
that I noticed that many of my architects are extremely innovative, but they get so deep down into fixing the problem that we are not able to tap them for what they are.
True. I mean, and perfect. You were giving examples of good interfaces, and also we have to keep in mind users' way of thinking changes over, over time, right? I mean, we are so. Let me put it this way. The example I have is Netflix. We've been using Netflix for such a long time, right? And you're so used to Netflix, the way you find shows, and the way Netflix algorithm has figured out that if you watch these types of shows often, it will just tee up once you finish the series, right? It'll just tee up something. And then I recently got Max, when HBO merged with Cinemax, and their recent app, it is just horrible. I have no idea how to navigate it because I'm so used to that Netflix kind of navigation style. So we have to understand that our users, simple things as navigation, how are they moving from screen to screen, is very dependent on their past behaviors and what they're used to. And so people do crazy things, and they want to change the way we navigate, and it's very hard to do that, especially at a certain age. So
Yep. And that's exactly why today we have so many ghost products.
right. Right.
And yep. Awesome. Sure, Seema. Yep. I'm so glad.
Well,
Feel free to ping out, stay connected,
yes.
and
And
happy to
email me the
share.
presentation. Yeah.
Yes.
And what I do with the presentation is anybody who registered gets it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the YouTube video, Winnie will put it up by tomorrow, once it is ready to be loaded.
Sure.
So thank you so much. Actually, Robin presents in May.
Mm-hmm.
Seema presents in April.
Awesome.
And we have women in what are those folks called? Data. Analytics, women in analytics, presenting about their conference in March.
Oh,
So
nice.
keep coming back. Keep coming
Yes,
back.
absolutely. I would love to share. I'll go ahead and share these events with uh, WIF Columbus and encourage them
Okay.
to attend the others too. Thank you.
Absolutely. And also, send your list to me or
Yep,
Robin, and we'll just post it, cross-post it on LinkedIn.
perfect, perfect. Well, thank you so much. Have a wonderful
Thank
afternoon
you.
and
Thank
take
you.
care.
You too.
Great.
Uh-huh.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Have you
Bye.
stopped recording?